Hello and welcome to the Choujigen game Neptune the Animation Vlogs. What's up? I'm back, the man behind the mask who hasn't made a on-camera video in quite some time. You know, mostly doing DOA stuff and the like, but we're talking about Neptunia here. Remember, this is a review, not the episode, but you probably figured it out already by the fact that I am not an anime character or female. So, what's been going on in this episode? This is episode 7, and apparently episode 8 and 9 are already out. I don't know how I managed to miss 3 weeks worth of episodes. I know I was late, like a week late with last week's episode, in that I made the video on Thursday, but still, you know, it's episode 7, and episode 8 and 9 are already on the internet, so I'm lagging behind. I need to catch up. So, what's been going on in this episode? Well, Plutia from... I need to have these on hand at all times. Plutia from Neptunia Victory shows up at the end of the previous episode, as I've said, and as you've probably seen already if you're watching this vlog. And, you know, she says that she's the CPU of Planet Neptune. This episode kicks off like a day later or such, where she's living in the Planet Neptune Basilicom in the hyper dimension instead of the ultra dimension, which is where she's from. And we learn that Neptune has a great fear and hatred of eggplants. Eggplants are Neptune's weakness, apparently. As they were having eggplants for dinner, Neptune didn't want to have a single part of it. And right outside the window of the Basilicom, you'd think the Basilicom would have better security by now. Considering how one Basilicom got hacked, the other Basilicom, the press snuck in, the other Basilicom freaking needs to be cleaned up every 24 hours because the CPU's too busy playing MMOs. You think at some point, not two of the freaking Basilicoms were hacked within a day. So you think that all the Basilicoms will have their security up by now, but nope. Because there's R4 sitting right outside the window with Pyrochu just listening in on what's going on. Here's Neptune's fear of eggplants and like, I'm going to dig a plan off this. It's the stupidest plan I've ever heard, but it is amazing. It is amazing when I get to it. So throughout the episode, you know, like, this is actually my introduction, character-wise. This is my introduction to Plutia, because, you know, I haven't played Neptunia Victory yet. I'm still stuck on Mark II. You know, the final fight that you have against, CFW Trick. It's weird. It's like every time I'm trying to play the game, it's like I'd be awake for like 30 hours, and then I try to figure out what I'm going to play. I put Neptunia Mark II into my PS3, and then like 5 minutes later I'm asleep, because I've been up for like 30 hours and chose every single time I try to do this boss fight, I pick the wrong time to play the game, because it's the time when I'm about to fall asleep. I need to time this better. I need better timing. So this is my introduction to the character Plutia. It's my first time hearing the character talk, even though, you know, it's in Japanese, and when I'm playing the games, I'm listening to the English voices. But she kind of reminds me of Toturi from Atelier Meruru. In the quiet way that she talks, and the such. I think it might even be the same voice actress. I don't know. Seiyu would be the Japanese way of saying that. I think it's the same Seiyu as the one that plays Toturi in Atelier Meruru. But I'm not here to talk about Atelier, even if Gus is involved with the first 2 games. They might be involved with the 3rd game as well. I don't know. The character Gus isn't in them, so I doubt it. Back on topic. So, Plutia, like, mentions that she can transform, yeah, but people try to urge her not to transform They say it will be best if she doesn't transform. And from what I've read on the Neptunia wiki, that is to say the more used wiki, there's two wikis, the more used wiki of Neptunia, reading what Iris Heart's personality is on that website, yeah, I can see why. Never seen it in action, though. This episode let me finally see it in action, because, again, haven't played Victory yet. Haven't gotten to it. So, what's been going on here? So, Histoire goes off to talk to Ultra Dimension Histoire. I think that one was Histoire, I don't know. She's much small. She's like a chibi version of Histoire. So, I don't know. So, Histoire talks to Chibi Histoire and asks, like, how come you sent Plutia to our dimension? I had no idea that multiple dimensions existed. And she says that, like, there's a power surge going on between the two dimensions, and it's going from connecting from their dimension to the hyperdimension. So, she sent Plutia over to figure out what's going on. And meanwhile, over back in the Basilicom, you know, Histoire tells IF and Compa that they should, like, keep watch on Plutia and stuff, and try to figure out what's going on and stuff, so that they can figure out what this power surge is. I say that she was telling it to Iffy and Compa, but really, she was telling it to everybody. It's just only Iffy and Compa were listening. The others were... Neptune was playing Neptunia Victory. Pishi took the end gear and started running around with it. Nepgear was chasing after her, so only IF and Compa heard what Histoire was saying. So that happens, and then IF goes to drive Compa to work. While driving on the road, they see that part of the road is out under construction, so they turn the other way and then get to like some purple fog, which knocks Compa out immediately. IF starts covering her nose and stuff to hold her breath when R4 and Pyrochu show up, and then IF passes out. Back at the Basilicom, before, like, right after they left, back at the Basilicom, you see that, crap, I'm getting overwhelmed with names now. Plutia is making a Neptune plushie, and she finished it, and then she was about to start working on a new piece of art, but the master at work fell asleep before she could get started, and then everyone else fell asleep as well. And then, finally, Nepgear runs into the room and wakes them up, showing them a picture from her Endgear that was sent to her by an anonymous address. That IF was tied up to a post out in the middle of a field. They go to rescue her. Meanwhile, in the field where IF is tied up, you see R4 there, said, "This is an eggplant ranch. I bought it myself." She literally says it at the end of the episode that she spent all of her money on this eggplant field. She starts shoving eggplants into IF's mouth. It's like the most suggestive thing that you could possibly think of. It's like the doggo scene from the second game. It's just shoving eggplants into her mouth. Drool is starting to leak from the mouth. If you watch this scene out of context, even in context, it's still suggestive, but watching it out of context, so she's torturing IF with eggplants. Finally, Neptune and Nepgear are flying over to the place, holding Plutia in their arms, and then Neptune smells the stench of eggplants, and then her transformation, and she falls to the ground. Nepgear has to hold Neptune and Plutia in her hands because she's the only one transformed at the moment. She drops them by accident. They drop and fall. Meanwhile, where's Compa with all this? Well, Pirate Chew has Compo on top of a straw house, like on the roof of a straw house, trying to soothe her, trying to lay the mood on. I was trying to get some. And they're just completely ignoring the battle and stuff going on. And the best part of the whole episode happens right here, where R4 gets a basket full of eggplants and throws the eggplants towards Neptune. And they play the Pokemon ball sound effect from the Pokemon anime. The eggplants transform Pokemon style into freaking Gaia, the winged warrior, whatever. The frick is the Gaia and the winged beast from Yu-Gi-Oh! But they're eggplants flying towards the Dragon Champion. That's his name. They transform into eggplant versions of Gaia, the Dragon Champion from Yu-Gi-Oh! And start flying towards them. And they start fighting them off in the sky. Neptune is unable to do anything because of her crippling fear of eggplants. IF is getting tortured more by R4 shoving eggplants down her mouth in the most suggestive ways possible. Nepgear is busy fighting all the eggplant Gaias in the sky. And Kappa is having a date with Pirate Chew over on top of a straw house somewhere. Plutia's there on the ground and they're all poking her, and the freaking eggplant knights are poking her some more and poking her. She's just standing there, just like a statue, just standing there getting poked by eggplants. And finally she just gets pissed off. She drops the Neptune plushie that she was still holding and stomps on the ground repeatedly, causing earthquakes and a giant crater where her foot stomped, stomping on the ground repeatedly. You know, like Thugnificent would say, stomp him in the nuts. Stomp him in the nuts. What? Stomp him in the nuts. I'ma stomp him in the nuts. But instead of nuts, it's the ground, and she's just stomping the ground more and more, causing a bigger crater. Finally getting pissed off more and more by the fact that R4 keeps sexually suggestively shoving eggplants down IF's throat. She transforms into Iris Heart, and just tortures R4, just smacks her around, starts laughing maniacally, frickin' salivating in the sadism of punishing R4, just sadistic, just going sadistic on her. You know, like Silent Rob said, just beat the fuck out of. You know, just boom, punched and frickin' slashed up, whipped all around the place. While that's going on, Neptune's like, Nepgear, let's finish up these eggplants. We shouldn't get involved in that. Smacking R4 all around the place, laughing maniacally and sadistically while she does it. While Neptune and Nepgear take care of the eggplant warriors. Nepgear frees IF, and then Neptune finishes up the last of them. Then they all go up to meet up to finish off R4, who at this point is like, did you really think I didn't come prepared for that? Transforms into a giant eggplant. Again, they play the Pokemon sound effect. Transforms into a giant eggplant mech. It's getting stupider the more I say it. And the stupider it becomes, the more awesome it becomes. You can see why I love this series. Transforms into a giant eggplant mech. And then Neptune's just like, now you're just a giant slob of purple. I don't care if you're an eggplant now. My anger is outweighing the fear. They all slash her up, and then she turns back into R4, and she's like, I got eggplant on my face. Which, when I heard that, I immediately thought of Samuel L. Jackson in the movie The Spirit, when he's just like, no eggs on my face! Because every 5 seconds, Samuel L. Jackson had to mention eggs in that movie for some reason, because octopuses, they lay eggs, and he was playing a character called the Octopus in that movie. The movie sucked, okay? I'm glad my only view of the movie was from frickin' atop the fourth wall, bad movie beatdown crossover. Back to Neptunia. So they deal with R4, and then Iris Heart goes over to where Compa and Pirachu are talking with each other. Pirachu's about to get himself a kiss. Lakonfa's like, I don't like bad guys. He's like, if I wasn't a bad guy, how would you feel then? In which, Irisheart just pops up from nowhere behind him, grabs his tail, and starts banging him face first into the house repeatedly. Again, sadistically laughing while she does it, just grabs his tail and just starts banging him into the house. The house is a drum, and he's the drumstick, and she's banging that drumstick into the drum as hard as she can, as fast as she can, as repeatedly as she can, till his face completely breaks apart. And then they go back, and now IF has a fear of eggplants. And we learn then that... It's at this point, it's like the last minutes of the episode, right before the closing theme song, that R4 mentions that she blew all of her money on the freaking eggplant farm. So Pirachu's was like, so you're going to become an eggplant farmer now? She's like, I spent all my money on this, what else am I going to do? I'm tired of being a villain and stuff. It's actually the most character development that R4 has ever had from either of the two games I've played so far. I know she's in the third. I know Ultra Dimension R4 is in the third game because you can't have a Neptunia game without R4. This is the most character development she's ever had. Probably because she was pretty much a one-note villain that was a reference to piracy. The R4 chip for the Nintendo. That's actually where her English name comes from. In Japanese, her name is different. And Pirachu's like, I got nothing better to do either. So he joins her, and they become eggplant farmers. And he's like, you're still going to pay me for this, though. And the episode ends right there. Then we get a preview of the next episode. This is actually the first episode, I think, that actually had a next time on Neptunia thing, instead of a joke that they threw in at the end that didn't make it into the episode. Or like a blooper that didn't make it into the episode. Like, still the funniest one from that video of mine that YouTube removed. With frickin' copyright claims. Putting frickin' copyright strike on my frickin' account. Having to use this Quiet Mason Griff account instead because I can't upload this video to my main channel. It's 17 minutes right now. It's going on 18 minutes. So, that's where I conclude. This is Quiet Mace, the man behind the mask, signing out. Watch this anime. It is hilarious.